So, good morning again. Y'all look pretty darn good today. You do. I'm so happy that you've all decided to move your clocks forward and be here on time. That's just wonderful. So, how many people here? It's so interesting that Maria Teresa would mention a little description of spiritual mind treatment as she was starting out this morning, because that's the whole focus of my talk this morning. And I'm wondering how many people here who've been with us over the last few months understand what we mean when we speak about spiritual mind treatment. You know, it's kind of one of those elusive things. You know, some of the privileged people of the center get to meet with a practitioner periodically. It's one of those things like, wow, if I knew that secret, maybe I could open the door to everything in my life, kind of thing. And today I'm going to give you everything you always wanted to know about spiritual mind treatment, but were afraid to ask. And first of all, what are the requisites for the constructive use of our thought? When you think about it, you know, we think, 60,000 thoughts a day, according to the researchers. And how many of those thoughts are constructive? You know, and how many are the same thoughts that we thought yesterday and the day before and maybe 5 years before? Are we still thinking the same things we've always thought and getting the same things we've always got? So, experience has shown that effective prayer or spiritual mind treatment incorporates with it 4 elements: recognition, unification or identification, as this particular book said, declaration or affirmation, and acceptance. And we also add release. But actually, the 4 that Ernest Holmes talked about in the book that I was using as a research book yesterday. While spiritual mind treatment is formulaic in nature, there is no hard and fast rule about how you do spiritual mind treatment. And I tell the students in Science of Mind 100 and 200, there's no bad treatment, because it's the intention behind the spiritual mind treatment that really is what makes it effective, not the words that we use, because God doesn't really hear the words, it hears the feeling behind the words. Each treatment is done differently by everybody. My friend Dr. Charles Geddes always starts out with gratitude. His beginning of every treatment, he begins with gratitude. So each prayer or treatment should include the development, though, of a spiritual idea that has kind of an easy, consistent flow to it, and that is convinced of the truth. Because what's true in our lives sometimes is not the truth. And I was kind of brought up short last week with that, because what was true for me last week is I wasn't feeling very good. But the truth of my being is that I'm whole, perfect, and complete. And sometimes we want to say to somebody, well, someone might share with us that they're experiencing a challenge or a difficulty in their lives, and the tendency is to say, well, that's not true. But the reality is it's true for them in the moment. The truth is something that we need to bring forward so that we can understand that what is currently happening is simply a temporary aberration or a temporary experience. And so we can then move beyond it. Bless you. We can move beyond it. Famed medical researcher Alexis Carrel, in commenting on prayer, said, prayer should be understood not as a mere mechanical recitation of formula, but as a mystical elevation, an absorption of consciousness in the contemplation of a principle both permeating and transcending our world. You know, how many times have we maybe recited the Lord's Prayer and just done it by rote, not thinking about what the words mean? Or Hail Mary. You know, growing up doing the rosary, it was repetitive. And we would use the same words over and over again. Does it have the same meaning, maybe, as a spiritual mind treatment? I think it did for me when I was doing it. Because while I'm saying the Lord's Prayer, or while I'm saying a Hail Mary, I can't think any discordant thoughts. You can't think two things at the same time. So it's good, right? It's very good. And so for both of us, in both cases, I think prayer is prayer is prayer is prayer. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Sometimes the shortest prayer is, oh my God. Thursday night when I went home after class and I turned on the television, and here we are in this technological age watching what is happening in Japan as it's happening. And my thought was, oh my God. And I immediately, Michael Beckwith says, that we shouldn't stop reading the newspaper, but that as we look at the news and read the newspaper, that it's a call to prayer for all of us. Everything that we read of in an adversity kind of situation is a call to prayer. So that's what happened for me. It was very seductive, though, to sit there for 2 hours when I should have been in bed watching what was going on the television. And yet, at the same time, seeing what's going on is what is true, but knowing the truth is that somewhere in that mix, God is in evidence. Couldn't see it just then, but I know that something will evolve out of that. The principle that both permeates or transcends our world is God. Omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. The all-knowing, all-present, and all-powerful. As we watch the powerful images of the Japan earthquake and the subsequent tsunami, we wonder about our own mortality and how we might handle a disaster of that magnitude in Los Angeles. We begin to think maybe in a constructive way about what it is that we can do as Angelinos to make ourselves ready for such a possibility. Not to say that we're thinking from the negative, but as it says in the Talmud, trust in Allah, but tie up your camel. And so we need to sort of tie up our camel a little bit here. So it seems so far away, Japan. If we've wakened up Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, this morning, we might feel some sort of an undefined malaise. And we have to look first at what's going on in our immediate lives. But the great, wonderful metaphysician Greg Braden says that once we've determined in our personal lives that we're okay, he says we look to our subjective response about what happened in Japan, and then we can see where we really need to do our own spiritual mind treatment. Because what we see as the appearance is so contrary to what we can sort of wrap our little brains around. The old religion would have us asking why God would do such a thing to anyone. And for me, the question might be asked a little differently is, what can we do to help? What can we do to help? Because I don't have an answer for the first question, because that harkens back to the old punishing God that we grew up with in the Old Testament. In much the same way as the 1994 earthquake here provided an opportunity for urban renewal in the Los Angeles area, I think we can expect the same thing for the people in Japan. The economy there has been suffering, and their jobless rate is also very high, comparatively speaking. The jobless rate has roughly been 3% there, but it's now in the range of 6%. It's doubled in recent years. And while they were more prepared for earthquakes there than maybe we are here, they are not prepared economically to support the people in getting their island nation back to full operation. So that might be a way in which we could support Japan. There may be other nations that can be most helpful to them in that incident. We can pray for the solace of those who have lost loved ones, because homes and cars can be replaced. They can be replaced. The cleanup, the rehabilitation, the reconstruction might provide many opportunities for people to work. This earthquake also has done something quite remarkable. It's taken the focus of attention off the Middle East and other parts of the world. And now that anger that we might have felt toward the Middle East and Libya, or its ruling, the regime there, that have killed people unnecessarily, has been redirected in sort of sorrow for those who have died in this unnaturally huge disaster. So we have redirected our thinking in a way that is a little bit more positive and life-affirming. And the manner in which we redirect our thoughts from anger to sorrow is the same way in which we can redirect and use our thoughts in a constructive and beneficial channel in the day-to-day living of our experiences. You know, it's actually a very simple thing to do, like Maria Teresa said in her creative thought. We just have to plug in, and the manner in which we plug in is from a positive aspect rather than from a negative aspect. You know, it gets worked out individually, and with the help of our conscious contact with God on a daily basis, the result forthcoming will verify the rightness of how we use the creative power of thought. And make no mistake about it, thought is creative. All thought is creative. And so we get to see where our thinking is going and what is it that we can do to help. You know, it is not helpful for us to feel sorry for the people of Japan. You know, offering that pity is not helpful to them. It's offering an opportunity for us to do something really constructive. And, you know, there are agencies that will be able to help us know how to do that. So for us today, it's really about doing spiritual mind treatment. And the first step in spiritual mind treatment is recognition. And I'll use Ernest Holmes' interpretation. We know that there is one life, that life is God. There is one creator, one creation, one law, one intelligence, one ultimate reality. It is good, whole, perfect, complete, and harmonious. Now, if I believed in God to the degree that I understood this step fully and completely, there would be no need for me to go to any other step of treatment. If I believed in the ultimate reality, the one infinite intelligence, to the degree that I put my word to it and I put my stamp of approval on it, I wouldn't have to go any further, because that's all I need is the first step. Now, if or when. I live in the if part of it, but I play in the when. I do. I think I might speak for a few of us here, that we play in the idea that God is all there is. And because, like you, I'm a work in progress, I know that it's something that I constantly work on, I build on. So the second step is unification or identification. And we unify ourselves with God by saying, I am that which God is. God is what I am. God is what I am. The Father and I are one. There needs to be a conscious, intelligent sensing and feeling of the divine presence within. And this is the step where it really begins. And as what we are, God is. What God is, we are. We begin to see ourselves as a creation of God, and we are expressing God creatively every day in every way. There's no separation between us and God. We are one. This second step, adding it to the first step, and the prayer becomes more concrete, because now there's a connection. I feel connected to that first step. And I'm more connected with my own divinity in this second step. Now, here again, if I stopped here, that's really all I would need. This is the really beautiful part of spiritual mind treatment as far as I'm concerned. And it's the part sometimes that we skip over. We just kind of make light of it. We skip over. But this is the part of spiritual mind treatment that causes me great waves of emotion. when I get really connected and I feel my unification with God. Step 3 is declaration or affirmation. And we spend a lot of time on affirmations in this philosophy. Affirming this, affirming that, affirming this, affirming that. But there is a definite and specific action and movement of intelligence through thought, word, or idea, and for some definite purpose or person, whether it's my own personal consciousness or the consciousness around a situation or a circumstance that I might be experiencing. In this step, we're not asking God for anything. Not asking God. I don't have to ask God for anything because God is simply going to say yes to whatever I place into the law. There's no begging. There's no wishing. There's no hoping and thinking and praying and planning and dreaming each night of his charms that he won't get you into his arms, a la Dusty Springfield, for those who are old enough to remember that song. You know, sometimes I really wish I could sing, because wouldn't it have been one for me, break out in song on that one. But no wishing and hoping and praying, like most of the songs that we used to hear in the 60s. You know, here we're making a concrete declaration of fact, a specializing, if you will, of our universal good, because it's specialized to my needs. Because what I desire to experience might be very different than what John wants, or what Audrey wants, or what Barbara wants. It is specialized to my individual needs. And that's why spiritual mind treatment is so wonderful. And that's why working with a practitioner is so wonderful. Because they don't have all the baggage that I have. And they can just simply break into prayer. And it's a done deal, as Maria Teresa said. You know, it is a done deal. You know, it is whatever it is I desire to realize in my life is already mine. It's already mine. I just have to recognize that it's mine. And when I really, really work this step of treatment and make that declaration, I must be prepared to have that declaration realized. Now, it can't be, it has to be specific. As Mary Manham Morrissey talks about in Prosperity Plus, specificity is very important in this step of treatment. And I go back to my saying all the time, one would not call Sears and ask for something. Because the person on the other end would say, well, what is it you want? I want something. And that's sometimes the way we do our spiritual mind treatment. We're not specific enough about what it is that we desire to experience. Now, I'm not saying that we're here to tell God how to make it show up in our lives, because that would be outlining. But we are here to be specific about what it is that we desire. This is a step where there's often doubt. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. If I don't really believe that the right and perfect employment is mine for the asking, or is waiting for my recognition of it, I don't really believe that I'm lovable. I don't really believe that I have perfect, vibrant, perfect health is in the realm of possibility, and I'm having serious trouble getting that prosperity as my divine right, then I'm in doubt. I'm in fear. So that's when I need somebody else to know that for me. This is often the step where we might need a little help from a friend. And someone who might become your very best friend would be your practitioner. One of the 20 or more that are here at this center. They are trained to see beyond your limitation to the truth of your being or my being. The fourth step is acceptance or gratitude. We accept our affirmation of truth, the word we've spoken, as being demonstrated right now. No delay is involved between the cause and its appearance of effect. No delay whatsoever, because there's no time or space in the mind of God. But in the human experience, it might look like there's a little delay. It might look like what I want it now. It's kind of like the temper tantrum, spiritual mind treatment. I want what I want, and I want it right now. Well, guess what? Maybe you don't have the consciousness just yet to accept it, but it's in the works. And you'll hear your practitioner say, patience, patience. I always remember when I worked for John, my friend Maureen worked for us, and she was online with Fidelity for a long, long time. And finally, she just slammed the phone down. And I remember saying to her, Marlene, patience is a virtue. She said, I know patience is a virtue, but I've lost all my virtue. I knew what she meant, but wasn't quite the right thing. So there is virtue in patience. There is virtue in being patient, in seeing that the reasons that one is not demonstrating what they would like to have in their life is because there is some information that needs to make itself known. And by accepting that our word is being acted upon by divine intelligence, speaking through us, and according to the way God works, our word automatically manifests in accordance with the law. The job I desire shows up with more salary than I could have imagined in a perfect environment. The health challenge that I thought, yes, thank you, Sherry, for being our visual aid. Ta-da! The health challenge that I thought I was experiencing is relieved through a simple corrective operation, and I feel better than I felt in years. The love of my life shows up in someone I considered to be one of my best friends for years and didn't even know that he cared for me in that way. And an uncle I never knew passed away and bequeaths me a significant number of stock shares valued at more than I ever could imagine. And my God, I tithe 10% to my center. I mean, how cool is that? So, it's good to laugh. So our acceptance of the reality of this good is as a tangible effect in my experience. And I give thanks for it. And so that's how spiritual mind treatment works. So if any of you have challenges in those arenas and you want to experience what I just said, the love of your life, a great job, perfect health, and more money than you can imagine, then it's time for you to talk to a practitioner. There's nothing really involved or complicated about this, but it really does require a clear mind and direct thinking. When we want to be in this right and perfect relationship, and we aren't really in right and perfect relationship with ourselves, there's a blockage. There's a definite blockage because the highest opinion I have of myself has to be filtered through the lowest opinion I have of anyone else. So there's a blockage sometimes, and the practitioner might be able to help us see where that blockage is. I also must clearly know that what I want, in order for me to have the experience of it, that what I want harms no other person, that is not in any way conflicting with anyone else. So my desires must be clearly defined. I can't want the right and perfect relationship if that person belongs to somebody else. That would not be in alignment with the natural order of things. Or what, as Joel Osteen says, in the natural. Now, I don't even know what that means right now. Okay, I forget I said that. So Ernest says that this is really not a creative prayer or treatment, but rather a preliminary to one. That knowing what we want is the preliminary to having an effective spiritual mind treatment. It's a sort of getting one's consciousness focused on God. And that's where we plug in on a daily basis. What is it that I'm reading on a daily basis? How is it that I'm speaking on a daily basis? And what is it that I'm feeling on a daily basis? If I am speaking ill of another person, my focus isn't on God. Because I cannot have a bad thought about somebody else, and they don't even know it sometimes. I have only those thoughts in myself that cause me a problem. They don't cause anybody else a problem. You know, I think someone said one time it would be like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. So for us, it's really getting focused on the relationship that we have with God. Those first two steps of treatment are really important. Our declaration is acted upon by a power greater than ourselves, and our belief in this power must be present before any of the words are said. There needs to be in our consciousness, back of the words we speak, a complete conviction that there is one life flowing through everything, never congested, never caught in any form of negation. Now, as we are all works in progress, I think we grow a little bit by little bit. That every day, as I become aware in my word and thought that there is something incongruent with my perfection, in that I have already taken the first step in my own self-awareness. So for all of us, it's when we arrive at this place in consciousness, we know that we're on the road to our own personal self-discovery, and in that self-discovery we then discover the beauty and the divinity in every other person. Because I must know it for myself first before I can know it for any other person. I must love myself enough before I can have anyone else love me. I must know that I am creatively expressing in a joyful way before that right and perfect job is going to show up. So if I'm currently in an employment where I'm unhappy or dissatisfied and I'm not really doing the best possible job, I can't expect a better job to show up for me. I have to show up 100%. And then when that other right and perfect job shows up, it'll be there. And the same in every area of our lives. When that consciousness shifts, life changes accordingly, and our thoughts will become things, as Ernest Holmes says, knowing that with God, all things are possible. Will you join me in consciousness, please? And so it is, as I speak this truth in the first person, it is that we are invited into prayer as a collective consciousness, that we are invited into spiritual mind treatment as a collective consciousness. And so I know today that there is one life. That life is God's life, that life is my life, that life is perfect right here and right now. That as I recognize that perfection in myself, and I recognize that life of God in my life, I am deeply, deeply and irrevocably connected to the God essence within me. I know that my life is good and very good. That as I speak this truth, I feel the connection. I feel that energy in me, that it is from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head, that the heart and soul of who I am is deeply connected to that spiritual essence that we call God, Spirit. Whatever it is that we know as the name for that infinite intelligence within each one of us. And so today I call upon this infinite intelligence as my own intelligence. And in that capacity, I make my demand upon the universe that I am completely surrounded by right and perfect relationships, that my circle of influence includes people that love me because I love, that I am surrounded by the right and perfect employment because I bring to my employment the best of who I am, that I creatively express in an expansive way, in a grand and glorious way. I know that health is my divine right, that as I know I'm spiritually healthy, then I am physically, emotionally, and mentally healthy as well, because I know the truth of my being, that health is a state of mind. And so I also know that truly, unequivocally, that prosperity is my divine right, that money flows to me from all directions because I am open and receptive to that energy coming forth in my life, that I remove whatever blockages that I might have in my life that says I need to make do or get by. I remove the blockages that say I'm not worthy to receive. And I allow the law of giving and receiving to be activated in my life in a way that I can understand. And so I know today that all things happen for good. And that as we know for the people in Japan, that there is recovery, that there is a way to reconstruct life. Not that it's going to look the same way as it did before, but something greater and more wonderful is wanting to make itself known by means of that experience for them. And so it is that we know for them the truth that God is all there is, that whatever denomination they are, we are aligned with them because there is only one mind. And when one in that one mind suffers, everyone suffers. And when one is in joy, everyone is in joy. So we hold that thought of joy for each and every person in Japan today. And we hold that thought of joy for everyone in our circle of influence, whether they are right here in this congregation, whether they're 5 miles away, or whether they're 5,000 miles away. I know today that there is one life. That life is my life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect right here and right now. And I accept this as my declaration of truth today, knowing that God is in the details in a way that works for everyone.
Someone's in need of a prayer today. Have you done your part? Someone's in despair this day. Have you prayed from the heart? So many are trying to find their way. They need the light, you know, for our prayer of love. It lifts them high, it heals them, sustains them, and it sets them free. Our prayer of love, it lifts them high, it heals them, sustains them, and it sets them free.
And so it is. Please welcome Jody back up for another song.